joke hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest, but I kept my face stone still. That's what 15 years as a civil engineer teaches you. How to calculate load-bearing capacity while everything around you crumbles. "Come on, Alex," my sister-in-law Jessica said, her wine-flushed face twisted into that familiar smirk. "If Erin ever cheats with her boss, promise you won't just whimper in the corner like a lost puppy." The backyard barbecue fell silent for exactly 3 seconds, long enough for me to catalog every face around the patio table. Erin's parents, her brother Tyler, his wife Monica, and 6 other relatives who'd never liked me anyway. Long enough to see my wife of 12 years lean back in her chair, that perfect real estate smile spreading across her lips. "Oh, please." Erin laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Alex couldn't handle that kind of drama. He's about as exciting as watching concrete dry. More laughter. Her mother, Diane, actually clapped her hands together. "Erin, you're terrible." "What?" "I'm just being honest." The man organizes his sock drawer by color and thread count. Grant Voss could sweep me off to Paris tomorrow, and Alex would probably just reschedule his weekly spreadsheet reviews. Grant Voss, her boss at Premier Properties. The name dropped so casually, like she'd been practicing it. I filed that detail away in the same mental folder where I'd been storing other interesting observations over the past 6 months. Late nights at the office, new lingerie appearing in our laundry, the way she'd started locking her phone. "You know what your problem is, Alex?" Tyler jumped in, emboldened by the crowd's energy. "You're too nice. Women like Erin need a man who takes charge, someone with backbone." I sipped my beer, a Stella Artois that had gone warm 20 minutes ago, and let them continue their little performance. Inside my head, I was already sketching blueprints. Not for buildings this time, for something much more interesting. "I mean, look at Grant," Erin continued, her eyes bright with wine and malice. "That man knows how to make a woman feel alive. He drives a Porsche, takes clients to 5-star restaurants, closes million-dollar deals before lunch. Real alpha energy, unlike our Alex here," Jessica added. "Who gets excited about bridge inspections and municipal zoning laws?" The circle erupted again. Even Erin's father, Stan, who'd borrowed $15,000 from me last year for his failing hardware store, was chuckling along. I stood up slowly, setting my beer on the glass-top table with the kind of precision that made everyone pause. "You know what? You're absolutely right." Erin blinked. "What?" "I am boring, predictable, the kind of guy who notices when utility bills don't get paid on time, or when someone's been using our joint credit card at the Marriott downtown every Tuesday afternoon for the past 3 months. The color drained from Erin's face like water through a broken dam. The kind of guy who keeps detailed records of everything. Bank statements, phone logs, credit reports, very boring stuff. The kind of documentation that would make a divorce attorney absolutely thrilled. I pulled out my phone and opened my Photos app. Like this receipt from Tiffany & Co. Funny thing, I never got a gift from there. But someone charged $800 to our account last week, Tuesday afternoon, right around the time you had that emergency showing in the financial district. Erin's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The patio had gone completely quiet, except for the neighbor's sprinkler system clicking through its cycle. "Alex," she started. But I held up my hand. No, let me finish. See, boring guys like me, we plan ahead. We notice patterns. We prepare for contingencies. I scrolled through more photos on my phone. Like when we set up that joint savings account 5 years ago. Remember the one where we both had to sign for major withdrawals? Well, turns out only one signature is required for transfers to accounts in the same name. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I showed her the screen. Bank transfer confirmation. Our savings account, $43,000, moved to my personal checking account at 2:47 p.m. that afternoon, right before I'd arrived at this charming family gathering. You see, Aaron, boring guys also read the fine print. She shot to her feet, wine sloshing from her glass onto her white sundress. You can't just... Actually, I can. It's all perfectly legal. Just like canceling our joint cell phone plan, which I did this morning, and the cable subscription and the landscaping service. Oh, and I called the mortgage company too. Very interesting conversation. Did you know that when someone stops making payments on a house that's only in their name, the bank gets quite concerned? Tyler started to stand up, but I fixed him with the kind of stare I usually reserved for contractors who tried to cut corners on safety inspections. Sit down, Tyler. This doesn't concern you. Though, I should mention that loan you co-signed with Erin for her new BMW, the one she told you was for a client development program. You might want to check with your bank. Seems there's been some confusion about the payment schedule. Jessica's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the flagstone patio. What are you talking about? Ask your sister. Ask her about a lot of things, like why she needed a co-signer in the first place when she claims to be Premier Properties' top agent, or why Grant Voss has been paying for hotel rooms with his personal credit card instead of the company's. I pocketed my phone and straightened my shirt. A plain blue polo that Aaron had always said made me look like a golf course maintenance worker. You know what the really boring thing about being a civil engineer is? We don't just build things. We also know exactly how to take them apart, foundation by foundation, support beam by support beam, until there's nothing left but an empty lot and a pile of debris. I looked around the circle of stunned faces, saving Erin for last. She was gripping the back of her chair so hard her knuckles had turned white. Thanks for the barbecue, folks. The potato salad was excellent, Diane. Oh, and Erin, don't bother coming home tonight. I had the locks changed this morning. Your things are in storage unit 47 at Store It on Maple Street. The keys under your car's windshield wiper. I walked toward the back gate, then paused and turned around. One more thing. That joke about me whimpering in the corner. You're right, Jessica. I wouldn't do that at all. I smiled. The same polite smile I'd worn through 12 years of their family gatherings, their little jokes, their casual cruelty. I'd do something much more interesting. The gate clicked shut behind me with the satisfying precision of a well-engineered mechanism. Through the fence slats, I could hear the explosion beginning. Aaron's voice rising to a shriek, Tyler demanding explanations, Diane sobbing about the embarrassment. I climbed into my Honda Civic, reliable, boring, paid in full, and drove to my new apartment across town. The one I'd been setting up for 3 weeks, ever since I'd confirmed what I'd suspected for months. My phone buzzed with the first of what would be many, many calls from Aaron. I let it go to voicemail and turned up the radio instead. Some classic rock station was playing Tom Petty's I Won't Back Down. Perfect soundtrack for what came next. The thing about revenge is that most people approach it like amateur contractors. All emotion, no planning, sloppy execution. They lash out in anger and end up with a structure that collapses under the first bit of pressure. But I'm a professional. I believe in proper foundation work. My new apartment was a studio in the Riverside complex, furnished with the kind of utilitarian efficiency that would have made Aaron break out in hives. IKEA furniture, basic cable, a mattress on the floor, everything I needed, nothing I didn't. Like a construction site office, but more comfortable. I'd been living there for exactly 18 hours when Rick Donovan showed up with coffee and donuts from Murphy's Bakery. Jesus, Alex, he said, looking around the sparse space. This place looks like a witness protection safe house. Rick owned Donovan's Pub downtown, the kind of neighborhood bar where cops and firefighters drank next to college professors and insurance adjusters. We'd been friends since high school, back when he was the class clown, and I was the guy who actually read the assigned books. He was one of the few people who'd never bought into Aaron's charm offensive. "It's temporary," I said, accepting the coffee. "Just until I figure out my next move." "Your next move, brother. From what I heard, you already made your move. Jessica called my cousin Mireen crying about some family drama. Said you went nuclear at the barbecue yesterday." I sat down on my single folding chair and opened the box of donuts. Boston cream, my favorite, which Rick remembered even though Aaron had spent years trying to get me to switch to those fancy organic pastries from the boutique place near her office. I simply provided some information that had been previously unavailable to the group. "Cut the engineer speak, Alex. What the heck happened?" So, I told him everything. The months of suspicion, the evidence I'd gathered, the financial moves I'd made, the look on Erin's face when she realized her boring, predictable husband had just systematically dismantled her comfortable life. Rick listened without interrupting, occasionally shaking his head or muttering under his breath. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You know what the scary part is?" he finally said. "You're enjoying this." He was right. For the first time in years, I felt completely awake, alert, like I'd been sleepwalking through my marriage and had suddenly snapped back to consciousness. She made her choice, Rick. I'm just making sure she lives with the consequences. And Grant, what's your plan there? I pulled out a manila folder from my desk drawer. Grant Voss, age 42, married to Lena Voss for 16 years. 2 kids, Emma, 14, and Jake, 12. Lives in that new development out on Hillrest Drive, the big colonial with a circular driveway. You've been busy. I'm thorough. Did you know Grant's been skimming commission from his junior agents? Nothing technically illegal, just creative accounting. The kind of thing that would be very embarrassing if it came to light during, say, a company audit. Rick raised an eyebrow. How do you know about company audits? I don't, yet, but Premier Properties uses Hartwell and Associates for their annual review. And Jim Hartwell's daughter is in my Thursday night continuing education class. Nice girl. Very interested in structural engineering. We've had some fascinating conversations about the importance of solid foundations in business. You're terrifying. You know that? My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number, but I recognized the tone immediately. Alex, this is insane. Call me. We need to talk. I showed Rick the screen. She got a new phone. You going to answer? Eventually, but not yet. Right now, she's still in the anger phase, calling me names, making demands, threatening lawyers. I need her to move into panic mode first. That's when people make mistakes. As if on cue, my phone rang. Unknown number again. Alex, hearken, I answered in my most professional voice. You son of a Aaron's voice was raw, like she'd been crying or screaming. Probably both. I'm sorry. Who is this? Don't play games with me, Alex. You know exactly who this is. Oh, Aaron. Hello. I didn't recognize the number. New phone. You canned our plan, you piece of language, Aaron. Remember, we're both professionals here. Now, what can I do for you? There was a pause, and I could practically hear her forcing herself to calm down. Alex, I know you're upset about yesterday. Maybe I said some things I shouldn't have. But this is crazy. You can't just destroy our entire life over a stupid joke. Destroy? That's a strong word. I prefer restructure like urban renewal, but more personal. This isn't funny. You're right. It's not funny at all. What's funny is that you think this is about yesterday. Aaron, I've known about you and Grant for months. The hotel receipts, the mysterious work trips, the new lingerie that never seemed to make it home. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Silence on the other end. Rick was watching me with the expression of a man witnessing a controlled demolition. I know this looks bad, Aaron finally said, but it's not what you think. Grant and I were you're just what? Friends, business partners. Let me save you some time, Aaron. I have photos, credit card statements, hotel security footage from 3 different locations. I have a paper trail that would make the FBI jealous. Her voice dropped to a whisper. What do you want? Want? I don't want anything, Aaron. I already have everything I need. The question is, what do you want? Do you want to try to salvage some dignity from this situation? Or do you want to keep pretending that I'm the same pushover you married 12 years ago? Alex, please. Can we just meet somewhere and talk about this like adults? Adults? Like the adults who were making jokes about my marriage at a family barbecue while my wife sat there smiling? Those kinds of adults. I could hear her breathing getting faster. Good. Panic mode was approaching. Look, I'll admit it. Grant and we got close, but it doesn't have to end everything. We can work through this. Marriage counseling, couples therapy, whatever you want. Aaron, let me explain something to you. When I design a building, I start with the foundation. If the foundation is compromised, if there are cracks, settling, structural weakness, the only responsible thing to do is tear it down and start over. You can't just patch the cracks and hope for the best. So, what are you saying? I'm saying our foundation has been compromised beyond repair. The responsible thing to do is controlled demolition. Rick was making a throat-cutting gesture, but I ignored him. You have 48 hours to decide how you want this to proceed, Aaron. Quietly and with minimal collateral damage, or publicly with maximum exposure. Your choice. What does that mean? It means you should probably call Grant and discuss your options. I'm sure he'll have some very interesting insights about damage control. I hung up and turned off the phone. Dude, Rick said, you're playing with fire here. She's going to lawyer up. Let her. I haven't done anything illegal. Everything I've taken was legally mine to take. Everything I know, I learned through perfectly legitimate means. Her lawyer will tell her the same thing. And Grant. I smiled and opened my laptop. Grant's about to have a very educational week. Grant Voss drove a silver Porsche 911 Carrera, the kind of car that screams midlife crisis in 12 languages. He parked it in the same spot every morning at premier properties, front row, angled to catch the sunlight, positioned so everyone walking into the building had to admire it. I'd been watching his routine for 3 days from the coffee shop across the street. Grant arrived at 8:15 a.m. Sharp, spent 5 minutes checking his reflection in the car's paint job, then strutted into the building like he owned the place, which according to the corporate records I'd pulled, he partially did. 15% stake inherited from his father-in-law. Today was Thursday, trash day in the financial district. I finished my coffee and walked across the street to the alley behind Premier Properties. The dumpsters were already full, mostly paper waste and food containers from the various offices. But I wasn't interested in the garbage. I was interested in the loading dock. The thing about commercial buildings is that they're designed for efficiency, not security. Service entrances, utility access, maintenance corridors, they're all about function over form. And if you know how to read blueprints, which I did, you can find your way around pretty much anywhere. The loading dock was unlocked as I'd expected. I slipped inside and took the service elevator to the third floor, where Premier Properties occupied the entire level. The hallway was empty. Most of the agents were either out showing properties or hiding in their offices making cold calls. Grant's office was at the end of the hall corner suite with windows facing both directions. Very impressive. Also, very predictable. I brought a small toolkit. Nothing fancy, just basic maintenance supplies. The kind of thing a building engineer might carry for routine inspections, which, technically, I was conducting. Grant's office door was locked, but the maintenance key I'd borrowed from the building super, thanks to a very convincing story about checking the HVAC system, worked perfectly. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd expected. Leather furniture, expensive artwork, photos of Grant with various local celebrities and politicians. His desk was the size of a small aircraft carrier, covered with contracts and listing sheets. And there in the top drawer was exactly what I'd been looking for. Grant kept a spare key to his Porsche in his desk drawer. I'd seen him use it 2 days earlier when he'd locked himself out of the car. Very convenient for someone who might need to move the vehicle for, say, emergency maintenance work. I pocketed the key and spent another few minutes examining the office. Grant was sloppy with his paperwork. Contracts left open, client information scattered around, financial documents mixed in with personal items, the kind of disorganization that suggested either supreme confidence or complete carelessness. Probably both. I was back in the coffee shop within 10 minutes, watching through the window as Grant emerged from the building for his usual lunch break. He walked to his car, checked his reflection again, and drove off toward the country club, where he ate the same Caesar salad every Thursday. That gave me exactly 90 minutes. The thing about expensive cars is that they're designed to be tamper-proof. Alarms, immobilizers, tracking systems, all very sophisticated. But they're not designed to resist someone who has the actual key and a working knowledge of automotive systems. I drove my Honda to the auto parts store and bought everything I needed. A bag of quick-setting concrete mix, a funnel, and 5 lb of glitter from the craft section. The teenage clerk looked at me strangely, but I just smiled and said I was helping my daughter with a school project. Not technically a lie. Back at Premier Properties, I used Grant's spare key to unlock the Porsche and pop the hood. The concrete mix went into the oil reservoir. Not enough to cause immediate damage, but sufficient to create some very expensive problems over the next few weeks. The glitter went into the air conditioning vents, ensuring that every time Grant turned on the climate control, he'd be treated to a festive light show. But the real masterpiece was what I did to the interior. I'd stopped by the fish market on my way to the auto parts store and purchased 2 lb of fresh shrimp. Not the expensive kind, the cheap farm-raised variety that starts to smell within hours of leaving refrigeration. I removed the heads and shells, then carefully distributed them throughout the car's interior. Under the seats, in the door panels, wedged into the air vents, tucked into every crevice I could find. The beauty of this particular approach was its subtlety. The smell would start slowly, just a faint odor that Grant might attribute to something he'd tracked in on his shoes. But over the next few days, as the shrimp decomposed in the enclosed space, the Porsche would become increasingly uninhabitable. I finished my work and locked the car, then walked back to my Honda and drove home to my apartment. The whole operation had taken less than 2 hours and cost me about $60 in materials. Grant wouldn't discover the problem until the next morning. I was having coffee and reading the newspaper when my phone rang. Unknown number, but I had a pretty good idea who it was. Alex Harkin. You bastard. Grant's voice was tight with rage. I know it was you. I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong number. Who is this? Don't play dumb with me, Harkin. My car? What did you do to my car? Your car? I'm afraid I don't understand. Is there some kind of problem with your vehicle? There's shrimp in my Porsche. Shrimp and glitter. And something's wrong with the engine. I sat down my coffee cup and adopted my most concerned tone. Oh my, that sounds terrible. Have you considered calling the police or maybe your insurance company? Vandalism is a serious crime. I know it was you. Erin told me what you're capable of. Erin? Oh, you mean my wife? Well, soon-to-be ex-wife, I suppose. Yes, we've been having some discussions about the future of our relationship. But I'm not sure what that has to do with your automotive troubles. Listen to me very carefully, you piece of Grant. Grant. Let's keep this civil. We're both professionals here. Now, if you're calling to accuse me of some kind of criminal activity, I think you should know that I have a very detailed alibi for yesterday afternoon. I was at the public library researching municipal zoning laws. Very boring stuff. But the librarian will remember me. I asked her several questions about property development regulations. There was a long pause. I could hear traffic in the background. Grant was probably calling from the parking lot, standing next to his ruined Porsche. What do you want? He finally asked. Want? I don't want anything from you, Grant. You've already given me everything I need. What's that supposed to mean? It means that a man who would steal another man's wife probably has other ethical blind spots as well. And a person with my particular skill set might find those blind spots very interesting to explore. Another pause longer this time. You're making a mistake, Harkin. I have friends in this town. Important people. You don't want to mess with me. Friends? That's wonderful. I hope they're loyal friends. The kind who will stick with you when things get complicated, because things are about to get very complicated indeed. I hung up and immediately called Rick. Donovan's pub. Rick speaking. It's Alex. How would you like to help me with a little project? What kind of project? The kind that involves teaching a very arrogant man about the consequences of his choices. Rick was quiet for a moment. This isn't going to end well, is it? That depends entirely on how you define well. For me, it's going to end exactly as planned. The beauty of a small city is that everyone knows everyone else's business, but nobody talks about it directly. They whisper at coffee shops, exchange meaningful looks at the grocery store, and save the really good gossip for family gatherings and neighborhood barbecues, which is why Jessica's emergency family meeting was so perfectly predictable. I learned about it from Monica, Tyler's wife, who called me at 7 in the morning on Saturday with barely contained excitement in her voice. Alex, it's Monica. I hope I'm not waking you up. Not at all, Monica. What can I do for you? Well, it's about tomorrow. Jessica's called a family meeting at her house. She wants everyone there. Parents, siblings, the whole group. She says it's about the situation with you and Erin. I see. And you're calling to invite me, actually. Monica's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. I'm calling to warn you. Jessica's been talking to some lawyer friend of hers, and she thinks she can pressure you into backing down. Something about emotional distress and financial manipulation. Monica had never liked Jessica. Too many years of being treated like the outsider who'd married into the family. This was her chance to watch the power structure shift. And she was clearly enjoying it. That's very thoughtful of you to let me know. Monica, there's more. Erin's been staying with Jessica since Thursday, and apparently she's been well. She's been having some kind of breakdown. Crying all the time, not eating, calling in sick to work. Jessica thinks if they all gang up on you together, you'll cave and take her back. Interesting theory. Alex, I have to ask. Is it true about the hotel rooms and the credit cards? What do you think, Monica? She was quiet for a moment. I think Aaron's been playing games for years, and she finally got caught. And I think Jessica's about to learn that you're not the pushover they all thought you were. You might be right about that. After Monica hung up, I sat in my folding chair and considered my options. I could ignore the family meeting entirely, let them have their little intervention without me, or I could show up and give them exactly what they were asking for. I chose option 3, controlled demolition. Jessica lived in a McMansion in Brookfield Estates, the kind of neighborhood where every house looked identical except for the color of the shutters, big lawns, circular driveways, and homeowners association rules about acceptable mailbox designs. The American dream, mass-produced and shrink-wrapped. I arrived at exactly 2, carrying a manila folder and wearing my best suit. The charcoal gray one I'd bought for job interviews, but rarely had occasion to wear. If they wanted a formal confrontation, I'd give them one. Jessica answered the door with the expression of a woman preparing for battle. Alex, I wasn't sure you'd come. Wouldn't miss it for the world, Jessica. Family meetings are so important for communication and understanding. The living room was set up like a tribunal. Diane and Stan sat on the couch, flanked by Tyler and Monica. Jessica took the armchair that faced the room, clearly the designated spokesperson. And there, curled up in the corner chair like a wounded animal, was Erin. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her eyes were red and puffy, and she was wearing one of Jessica's oversized sweaters that made her look like a child playing dress-up. The transformation from confident real estate agent to broken victim was so complete. It was almost artistic. Alex? Diane started, her voice trembling with maternal concern. We need to talk about what you're doing to our daughter. What I'm doing, I'm not doing anything to Erin. I'm simply adjusting my own life to accommodate some new information about our relationship. You destroyed her car? Tyler said. And her credit and her job. I haven't touched her car. As for her credit, that's between her and the various financial institutions she's been dealing with and her job. I shrugged. I can't control how her employer responds to workplace relationship issues. Jessica leaned forward. Alex, I'll be direct. We know you're angry and you have every right to be. But this has gone far enough. You're destroying not just Erin, but yourself. This kind of vindictive behavior, it's not healthy. It's not normal. Vindictive. That's an interesting word choice. Let me ask you something, Jessica. When you made that joke at the barbecue, the one about me whimpering in the corner, what exactly were you hoping to accomplish? It was just a joke, Alex. I never meant no. I think you meant exactly what you said. You were testing me, seeing how much abuse I'd tolerate before I finally stood up for myself. Well, congratulations. You got your answer. I opened my manila folder and pulled out a stack of photographs. These are pictures from the Marriott downtown, Tuesday afternoons going back 6 months. Very clear images of Erin and Grant entering and leaving the same room. I set the photos on the coffee table where everyone could see them. Diane gasped and covered her mouth. Stan's face turned red. Monica picked up one of the photos and examined it with the fascination of someone watching a car accident. And these, I continued, pulling out more documents, are credit card statements showing charges for jewelry, flowers, and romantic dinners that I never received or attended. Purchases made during what Erin claimed were business meetings or client showings. Erin finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex, please don't do this. Do what? Tell the truth. Share facts with people who claim to care about both of us. I pulled out another set of papers. These are bank records showing that Erin has been systematically moving money from our joint accounts to a private account that she opened 6 months ago. The same account where Grant has been making regular deposits. The room went completely silent. Jessica's confident expression was starting to crack. "But here's my favorite," I said, pulling out the final document. "This is a lease agreement for an apartment in Harbor View, that new luxury complex downtown signed by both Erin and Grant, dated 3 weeks ago. Apparently, they were planning to move in together at the end of the month." I looked around the room, making eye contact with each family member. "So, let me make sure I understand the situation correctly. My wife has been having an affair for months, stealing money from our joint accounts and planning to abandon our marriage. But somehow I'm the one who's being unreasonable." Diane was crying now. Stan was staring at the floor like he wanted to disappear through it. Tyler looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. "Erin," Jessica said, her voice shaking, "is this true?" Erin's composure finally cracked completely. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this, Grant and I. We fell in love. It wasn't planned. It just happened for 6 months?" Monica asked. "You just happened to fall in love for 6 months while stealing money and lying to everyone?" "It's not that simple," Erin sobbed. "You don't understand what it's like being married to someone like Alex. He's so boring, so predictable. Grant makes me feel alive." "Alive enough to commit fraud?" I asked. "Because that's what this is, Erin. You've been using our joint accounts to fund your affair. You've been lying to clients, skipping work, and putting your employer at risk. All so you could feel alive." Jessica was staring at her sister like she'd never seen her before. "Erin, how could you do this? How could you lie to all of us?" "I didn't lie. I didn't tell you everything. You let us attack Alex." Tyler said, "You sat there while we called him boring and predictable and weak, and you knew the whole time that you were the one in the wrong." I stood up and collected my documents. "I think we're done here. Erin, you have until Monday to decide how you want to handle the divorce proceedings. Quietly and cooperatively, or publicly and contentiously. Your choice." "Alex, wait," Stan said. "Maybe we can work something out. Family counseling, mediation, something." "Stan, with all due respect, there's nothing to work out. Your daughter made her choices. Now she gets to live with the consequences." I walked toward the door, then paused and turned back to the room. "Oh, and Jessica, the next time you want to make jokes about someone's marriage, you might want to make sure you know what you're talking about first." I left them there in their perfect living room, surrounded by the wreckage of their assumptions about who was the victim and who was the villain. As I drove home, my phone started ringing. First Monica, then Tyler, then even Diane. All of them wanting to apologize, to explain, to somehow undo the damage they'd helped create. I let them all go to voicemail. I had more important work to do. The thing about bringing down a building is timing. You can't just start swinging a wrecking ball and hope for the best. You have to weaken the right supports in the right sequence, so that when the final moment comes, the whole structure collapses exactly where and how you want it to. Grant's structure was more complex than Erin's. He had more to lose, a business, a reputation, a family that didn't know about his extracurricular activities. But he also had more weak points to exploit. I started with his wife. Lena Voss was a pediatric nurse at St. Mary's Hospital, the kind of woman who spent her days taking care of other people's children while her own husband was destroying their family. She deserved to know the truth, but she also deserved to hear it in a way that gave her some control over what happened next. I waited for her in the hospital parking lot after her shift on Tuesday evening. When she emerged from the building, I approached her with the careful respect of someone delivering difficult news. "Mrs. Voss, I'm Alex Harkin. I believe you know my wife, Erin." Lena was a small woman with graying hair and tired eyes, but there was steel in her voice when she answered. "I know who you are, Mr. Harkin, and I think I know why you're here." "You do?" "I'm not stupid. Grant's been acting strange for months. New clothes, mysterious phone calls, working late every night." "And your wife?" She shook her head. "I've met Erin at company parties. She's not exactly subtle about her intentions." We stood there in the parking lot while the evening shift arrived and the day shift departed. Two people whose spouses had decided to blow up their lives for the sake of feeling alive. "What do you want from me?" Lena asked. "Nothing. I just thought you should know that Grant's been using company funds to pay for hotel rooms and expensive dinners, and that he and Erin have signed a lease for an apartment downtown." I handed her a manila envelope. "These are copies of everything I have. Bank records, hotel receipts, photographs. You can do whatever you think is best with the information." Lena took the envelope, but didn't open it. "Why are you giving this to me instead of going to the police?" "Because this isn't about revenge, Mrs. Voss. It's about making sure that the people who've been lied to have the information they need to make their own decisions." "And what decision are you hoping I'll make?" "Whatever decision is best for you and your children." "That's not my call to make." I left her there in the parking lot, holding the envelope that contained the evidence of her husband's betrayal. What she did with it was up to her. But I had a pretty good idea what a pediatric nurse with two teenagers and a cheating husband might choose to do. The call came 3 days later at 6:30 in the morning. "Alex Harkin." "You son of a," Grant's voice was raw with fury and panic. "What did you tell my wife?" I told her the truth. The same truth I told Erin's family. Facts, documentation, evidence. Very boring stuff. She's filing for divorce. She's taking the kids. She's frozen our bank accounts. That sounds very stressful for you, Grant. Have you considered marriage counseling? This isn't over, Harkin. I will destroy you for this. With what? Your extensive network of loyal friends, your sterling reputation in the business community, your rock-solid marriage and stable family life. The line went quiet for a moment. You know what your problem is, Grant. You thought this was a game. You thought you could take whatever you wanted, other people's wives, other people's money, other people's trust, and there would never be any consequences. But here's the thing about consequences. They don't care whether you're ready for them or not. I'll sue you for harassment, for stalking, for what? Providing factual information to people who had a right to know. Good luck with that legal strategy. I hung up and made myself coffee. Through my apartment window, I could see the morning commuters heading to work. All of them carrying their own secrets and lies and small betrayals. But today, at least 2 of those commuters, Grant and Erin, were learning that actions have consequences. My phone rang again. This time, it was Rick. Alex, you need to get down to the pub now. Why? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. You need to see this. I drove downtown to Donovan's pub, which was unusually crowded for 10 hours in the morning. The reason became clear as soon as I walked in. Everyone was clustered around the bar, watching the local morning news on the television. Investigation into financial irregularities at Premier Properties has resulted in the termination of 2 senior employees. The anchor was saying Grant Voss, a partner in the firm, and Erin Harkin, a sales agent, were dismissed yesterday following an internal audit that revealed questionable expense reporting and potential misuse of company resources. The camera cut to footage of Grant and Aaron leaving the Premier Properties building, both of them looking like they'd been run over by a truck. The company's president, Margaret Chen, released a statement saying that Premier Properties has zero tolerance for ethical violations and that they are cooperating fully with ongoing investigations. Rick appeared at my elbow with a beer, even though it was barely past breakfast time. "Congratulations," he said. "You just pulled off the most thorough character assassination I've ever witnessed." "I didn't assassinate anyone's character, Rick. I just provided some information to people who were in a position to act on it." "Information like what?" "Like the fact that Grant's been skimming commissions from junior agents for years, and that Erin's been inflating her sales numbers by double-counting transactions, and that they've both been using company credit cards for personal expenses." "How did you find all that out?" "I didn't find it out. Jim Hartwell's audit found it out. I just made sure the audit happened sooner rather than later." Rick stared at me. "You orchestrated a corporate audit." "I suggested to Jim's daughter that her father might want to take a closer look at Premier Properties books purely as an academic exercise. Of course, she's very interested in forensic accounting. The news report was wrapping up, but the damage was done. In a city this size, being fired for ethical violations was a career-ending event. Grant and Aaron wouldn't just lose their jobs. They'd lose their professional reputations, their social standing, and any chance of rebuilding their lives in this community. "So what happens now?" Rick asked. Now they get to start over. New city, new jobs, new identities. Just like I did. Except you chose to start over. They're being forced to." I sipped my beer and watched the morning news move on to a story about road construction delays. "Rick, let me ask you something. If someone steals your car and you call the police, are you forcing the thief to face consequences, or are you just making sure that actions have appropriate results?" "I see your point. But this feels like more than just calling the police." "You're right. It's much more efficient." My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "You win. We're leaving town. I hope you're happy." I showed Rick the message. "Aaron. Probably, though, it could be Grant. They're both having a pretty rough week." I typed back, "I'm not happy or unhappy. I'm just done." And I was. The foundation was gone. The structure had collapsed, and the lot was clear. Time to build something new. As I finished my beer and prepared to leave, Rick grabbed my arm. "Alex, can I ask you something? Do you feel bad about any of this, even a little bit?" I considered the question seriously. "Rick, do you feel bad when you fire a bartender for stealing from the register?" "No, but that's different." "How is it different?" "Someone took something that didn't belong to them. Someone lied and cheated and hurt innocent people. Someone made choices that had predictable consequences. The only difference is scale." I put on my jacket and headed for the door. "Besides, I didn't destroy their lives, Rick. I just stopped pretending that their choices didn't matter." Outside, the morning sun was burning off the fog, and the city was coming alive with the energy of people who still believed in fresh starts and second chances. Somewhere in that crowd, Grant and Aaron were probably making plans to disappear, to reinvent themselves, to find a place where nobody knew their story. Good for them. Everyone deserves a chance to build something better. Even me. I walked back to my Honda and drove home to my empty apartment where I had some blueprints to draw. Not for buildings this time, for the life I was going to construct on the solid foundation of truth I'd finally managed to create. The quiet ruin was complete. Time to see what I could build in its place.